So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. We are going to discuss contract management careers in demand with high potential. Today is going to be hosted by the National Contract Management Association, and my name is Lene Sanut, and I am a senior learning specialist here at NCMA HQ. Some of my colleagues, Mallory Jones and Leah Denton, are behind the scenes to assist you today. And you can use the chat window, as you already are, to communicate with each other, network, and communicate with your panelists today. So today is being recorded, and the slides and the recording will be up on the course website by tomorrow, and we'll put the link to the course as a reminder in the chat. So if any of your friends or your colleagues who couldn't make it today, or you want to share it with them, they can still register and watch the recording at a later date. So I'm excited now to introduce our wonderful panel. We do have more information about their backgrounds available on the course website. So today we have Samantha Williams, who's the Senior Director of Learning at NCMA. We have Jessica Johnson, the Director of Contracts at Legal Applied Intuition Incorporated. Marvin Horn, the Deputy Assistant Administrator for the Office of Procurement, Agency Procurement Ombudsman, and Competition Advocate at NASA, and Madeline Hamlin, Contracts Administrator 2 at Mission Technologies. So thank you all for joining today, and I'm going to hand it off to Samantha.
All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Lene introduced. My name is Samantha Williams. I am the Senior Director of Learning here at NCMA. I've worked with NCMA for about 6 years, but I started my career in contract management after getting my degree in international development. So as you'll hear today, my story is pretty common in that contract managers can come from all kinds of different fields of study, all different majors, make fantastic contract managers. So many of you are students. Some of you could be switching careers into contract management or considering doing so. So we'll do some polling in a bit to learn a bit more about who is in the room with us today. So today we're going to cover resources and pathway to ease your transition or entry into contract management. So our goal here is to tell you what we know, and that contract management is an exciting profession, can take you anywhere. You can work on space launches, as you'll learn from Marvin, who's here today, COVID vaccines, every mission that our federal government takes on, as well as business to business type deals, has a contract manager behind it. So we want to tell you a whole lot more about that. We want to leave you excited and with an understanding of what the profession involves and a clear path and some resources forward as you go forward in your journey. So we will follow my intro here with a day in the life of a contract manager. So we're so glad to have Jessica Johnson on with us. Tips from an early career contract professional. So thank you, Maddie, for being here. She is a member of our current Contract Management Leadership Development Program cohort. So she's here to share her journey after her first couple of years in the profession. And then we will have Marvin Horn, who we're honored to have here as well, sharing his experience as well as his tips for entering the federal government. And some exciting things NASA is doing in the career field. So if you could go to the next slide, I want to share a bit more about the pathway and then not take too much time before handing off to our panel. So NCMA is the National Contract Management Association, and we are the professional association for contract managers. So we are here to support you as you enter this profession and your pathway into the profession. So a few items that we have here that I wanted to specifically highlight for you. First of all, NCMA membership for students is completely free. So if you are studying anything, but if you are a student or even a continuing education student, like you have a job, but you're also in school, NCMA membership is completely free. So you could sign up today, start taking advantage of our community. learn about the profession through the resources that we offer, many of which are free to members or heavily discounted. So want to make sure we tell you about that. We do have an internship. We have a job board and a career center, and we are excited to be launching here in the coming weeks an internship board, which you'll see a lot more about in a bit as we go forward in the coming weeks. But internships that are centered around the contract management standard of the profession, the key skills and competencies of the contract management profession. So NCMA sets that standard, and we also will have internships that are reviewed by NCMA as those that are offering internships around the profession. So one way to get an internship, Marvin's going to share a whole lot more about how to enter the profession on the federal side as well. So the last two things here. So the CCMA certification is an entry-level certification into the profession. So Certified Contract Management Associate is the name of the certification. And what it is essentially a demonstration of your commitment to be a professional and, further your learning in a profession. And this profession, the profession of contract management. So it is based on our contract management standard, which is kind of the high level layout of what the competencies of the profession are. It is fairly high level, and it is something you can sit for if you're a student the second you graduate. If you have not graduated yet, you can still study for that while you're in school through a CCMA prep course, which is free to students. And then you can enter the profession already with a professional certification. So if you've been in the profession for a few years or more, you might explore our other certifications. CPCM, Certified Professional Contract Manager, CFCM, Certified Federal Contract Manager, if you're working in the government. But the CCMA is one you can get right away as soon as you graduate. All right, so that's the pathway. We will share it again at the end of this presentation, and we'll send out a link when we finish here to make sure that you're linked in with us and that we can share these resources with you. So no worries if you missed anything that I shared here. We're going to be providing it to you. Just wanted to lay it out for you here at the top of our time together. So with that, I am honored to hand it over to Jessica Johnson. She is going to share with you the day in the life of a contract manager, in case you've wondered what that might look like. And that's it. Over to you, Jessica.
All right. Thanks so much, Samantha. And hi, everyone. I'm excited to talk to you today about what I do and hopefully get you excited about growing your career in contracts. So again, my name is Jessica Johnson. Currently, I'm a government contracts manager in the legal department for a company called Applied Intuition. They produce software that's used for autonomous vehicles. And so I specifically support their government branch related to autonomy within defense vehicles. So how did I get here? I started out actually as a marketing major at Howard University in DC. And then I went for my master's in business administration from Virginia Tech, based up here in Falls Church. So how did I get into contracts? This wasn't something that I really focused on doing. I thought that I was going to be an advertising executive. I was focused on graphic design. And when I started to do those roles, I realized I didn't have a lot of control over my work product. There was always someone else saying, hey, make it like this, design it like this. And I wanted to be very, very creative. So on a whim, I took an opportunity to apply for a subcontract management role at a local defense contractor here in the DC area. I told them I have no idea what this is, but if I'm bad at it, you have my permission to fire me within 60 days. And I've been now doing this for 15 years because I love it. So I want to hear from you all. Next slide, please. We have a little poll here. I was a marketing major. What are you all doing here? have you earned or are you currently pursuing a degree in contract management or procurement? I want to see what the audience is looking like here. Okay. No is the top here, but it's a pretty good balance. And then some are thinking about it. Okay. I think we flattened out here. So this is an interesting mix here. I think a lot of folks that are currently in contract management or procurement professions, as Samantha said, didn't start out with degrees in that, and that may be for a variety of reasons, maybe no interest. For me, it was just not an option. My college didn't have procurement, acquisition, or contract management as a degree option. So later on, I took other avenues and NCMA resources to really get me that experience and knowledge that I needed that I couldn't get from some of the great programs that are available today. But that's just to encourage those of you, if you've already gotten your degree and you don't plan to go back to school, it's not the end of the road by any means. And I think in some ways, having a different degree and a different perspective can be sort of a superpower in an ability to think differently. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so why contract management? There's a lot of other things that I could have done with a general MBA. Number one, contract management professionals do important and interesting work. Many of us that are in this field are doing things that have very important missions. They could be classified, or like what I'm doing right now with a tech startup. It's really making sure that the acquisition process runs smoothly and that the organization is presenting the best proposal to the government to make sure that they get what they need to meet their mission needs. No day is really the same. So if you haven't gotten into a role yet and you're concerned, okay, this may just be a desk job, I will assure you, and I'll go into that on the next slide, that no day is really predictable. And so if you like change and if you like problem solving, contract management is a great place to be. Contracts are also at the center of every business deal in every industry. Anywhere that you see business going on, there's a contract tied to that. Anything that's being purchased, anything that's being sold, contracts is there. So if you're nosy like I am and you really want to know what's going on in a business, contracts is the place to be because you're going to get involved at some level during that business deal. And you're driving how the business deal is made. You can pick up clauses that are in the contract and say, hey, here's a risk, or here's an idea of how we could more creatively solve this problem. Here's a way to meet in the middle. You're really a critical component of how business deals are going to be made in your organization. And you get to interact with basically every function in the organization. So that could be your C-suite executives, your technical experts like your program managers or engineers. That's who I talk to the most now is software engineers. Your marketing department. Can that contract that you were just awarded actually be released via press release? And your IT department. I think we're all really getting more focused in on NIST compliance here. And so you're really a part of every single part of your organization. So if you like to put your hands in everything, contracts is really a fun role to get into. Next slide. All right, so this is my day. It's a little nutty. I start off in the morning, really just checking my email and my Slack. I want to set my mind on what's happened while I was sleeping. And especially if you're working with geographically dispersed teams where they may be working totally different hours than you, it's important for me to understand what did I miss overnight? How can I plan out my day as best as I can before I'm really even getting started? I'll scan my calendar to make sure that I'm not going to be late for anything. I know where I need to be. And one of my most important things is blocking focus time. If there's a big project that I'm working on, I'll make sure to actually dedicate time on my calendar where no one can book a meeting. Because if I don't do that, meetings will spill over, they'll pop up, and then I'll never make that progress that I need. So focus time there. I commute 3 days a week now. You got to have your coffee and your loud music. And then it's really just working, networking with folks. At the office, I make sure that I sit and eat with my coworkers so I understand what they're working on, and then move the needle on those projects. I think another thing, though, is not to get caught up in one large project at the expense of some little things that maybe you could knock off in 10 minutes. So I like to knock off 10 things that can get done in 5 minutes or less. You make a ton of your internal customers happy and then get back to work during your focus time. Um, I always make time for my family when I get home, but I continue to work late into the night because this is something that I love to do. And I do support customers internally and externally that are on different time zones. So I make myself available late hours of the night. This isn't for everyone, and this isn't going to be everyone's experience. If you are a senior manager or a director in a contracts department, but I actually love it. I crave it. And I think it adds to a life flexibility of being able to kind of shift your schedule around your family's needs, some of your personal interests, and making sure that you're staying on top of things. Next slide. All right, certifications. Certifications are huge, especially for me because I didn't have a contract management background or degree. So let's see where you all are. Okay, lots of people thinking about it. 50%. Okay. Those of you that are thinking about it, definitely do it. There's going to be more evidence here. And I see something in the chat here about the mean salary for a contract manager. Why is that? Certifications are super, super valuable for this profession because we really need competent professionals that understand the different regulations. And then you can navigate around those regulations, but it is the basis because you don't want to be um, pursuing a negotiation strategy that is against public law, or any other regulation that you could have been aware of if you were studying with your certification. So I took the CFCM exam several years ago, and then the CPCM. And I think both of them are valuable for very different ways. If you're not familiar, the CFCM is based on the FAR, and the CPCM is based on the contract management body of knowledge, which I think as you get later into your career is very, very helpful. It's more like MBA content of how to navigate as a contract manager in a functional business. Next slide, please. So here's the salary data. This is what everyone wants to know because it sounds like it's long days, hard work. You need these certifications, but it really does pay off here. And this is because people will pay you to solve problems. This isn't just reading legal documents all day, although there is a lot of reading involved. It's coming up with solutions and helping your business solve problems here. And that's very valuable to organizations here. So these are just the 50th percentile. So that means that 50% are lower, 50% are higher here. But as you can see, if you have a master's degree, you're going to be bumped up over a bachelor's, but having a CPCM is even more valuable here. So if you're not trying to go back to school for a master's, don't have that ability or desire, there's ways to bump your salary up and be a really, really well-paid professional here if you can get these certifications and maintain them. It is very critical, and I'm super passionate about this, to keep going to continuous training. And NCMA offers a ton of this to make sure that you're not taking this test one time and then forgetting everything. It is very important to the integrity of the certifications that we're all keeping the standard held high so that they continue to mean something when somebody has them behind their name. So I know we have a lot more to get into here. Next slide. So I want to introduce Maddie. Maddie is in the next CMLDP cohort here. I'm CMLDP, oh gosh, 2009. So I'm an oldie, but over to you, Maddie, and she's going to talk about tips from an early contract management professional.
Hi, everyone. It's really nice to meet you. I am Madeline Hamlin. And I have a pretty similar start of not thinking I was going to get into government contracting at all. I joined a contracts department just as a summer hire to get some experience before I started college. When I graduated high school back in 2015, I ended up clicking with those people so well that I would come back every summer and every holiday break that I had just to kind of assist them where I could. I was pursuing a degree in international business, and I graduated with that degree and minor in operational excellence, which is your Lean Six Sigma, which also is directly related to contracts. And the only way that I did that was because of the department that I was involved in. They encouraged me, and I decided, why not take the leap? So once I graduated, I was hired on full time for them. I did a internship through them as well, which they built around me so that I could stay with them. And then from graduation, I became a junior admin assistant. I then became a junior admin, a contracts admin 1, and then a contracts admin 2 with that company. I then moved on to a small business where I was a contracts associate and then took the department on by myself when our director went off on maternity leave. Decided that the small business world really wasn't for me, moved back over into big business, which is where I currently am as a contracts admin 2, and I'm slowly growing into an admin 3 and going to keep climbing that ladder. So I'm just going to provide some helpful tips that I've learned along the way, being a young person coming into this industry and kind of having no idea what it involved, just thinking I was going to do a quick summer job and it turning into my entire career. So some of those helpful tips I have is to become involved, truly. Join NCMA, join any clubs at your school of anything that you're interested in, whether it be business, accounting, finance, it all directly relates to contracts in the end. And they did mention I am part of the CMLDP program this year, so definitely apply for that as well. I'm a little bit biased, obviously, but I do recommend it. The 2 months that I've been in it so far have been absolutely wonderful, and I'm super excited to see where it takes me. It is a competitive program. It will grow your leadership abilities, and it will also give you the opportunity to attend a bunch of those NCMA conferences that you may not have known about. Knowing that I was a new NCMA member, I wasn't too sure what those conferences involved until I got involved in CMLDP, and now I'm getting an introduction. I'm actually really excited to attend them. It's great networking, which is another helpful tip. Network. Talk to anybody and everybody. You get involved in NCMA, you get involved in a club at school, connect with those people, have those conversations, get an understanding of things that may interest you. And even if it doesn't interest you, still ask so you can understand better. I found that to be extremely helpful. Did I think contracts was going to be my life at one point? No, now it is. And just like Jessica, I do actually really enjoy it. Do not get me wrong. There are those mundane days and those mundane tasks, being only an admin 2, but it's also motivation to push and become those directors who give those tasks out. It's push to learn the information, take those certifications, get the information and understand it better, and become that leader that I want to be. So those are my main tips, is truly just get involved, do the internships, network, build your LinkedIn profile, truly use that as a very helpful resource, and ask questions. Questions are going to be your best resource. People are always so willing to share information. They may not seem like it, but once you ask that question, they're going to give it to you. So not much, simple background. I'm new here, but I'm still learning and growing as well.
Thanks so much, Maddie, for sharing your tips. I love that network. Just continue connecting, because you don't know who you'll meet and where that will lead you. So thank you again. And it's now my pleasure to hand over to Marvin Horn. We're honored to have him here. He represents NASA, of course. So you'll all learn how to be manning the next space launch after he's done with this presentation. But he also represents the federal government, which is probably the largest employer of contracting professionals. So NCMA has a federal government as well as industry companies that sell to the federal government, as well as business to business and state and local government. But we're glad to have Marvin here to share the entry and some career tips for having a rewarding career contracting in the federal government. So Marvin, it's all yours. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Samantha. Really appreciate it. So glad to be here to talk about two things that I really enjoy talking about, contracting or procurement. Either word, they mean the same if you hear them in the field, but also NASA. So really glad to be here. Next chart, please. All right, so while we're switching charts, so one thing I do want to say is in demand is kind of like the title of this series. So contracting professionals are highly in demand. And that's either as Samantha was just talking about in commercial industries, such as Boeing, Lockheed, of course, those are like federal contractors, but also Walmart, different companies like that also too. But also federal contractors that work on site alongside and support federal contracting officers. And so companies such as MMC Consulting, CACI, doing those contract support type roles, but also federal government such as NASA, leading me right into what is NASA, right? And so you can see here, I'm not going to talk everything on this chart. I actually have a few charts. My purpose of having quite a few charts, I know I don't have much time, is really to leave the charts with you so you have a resource and a tool to help you as you move forward and you really think about this career field. For NASA, we have about 18,000 employees across the country. About 780 of those are actually contracting officers, contract specialists within the Office of Procurement. And we really talked about, I think it was Jessica that talked about the influence of contracting have on the overall organization. And so you can see the NASA's budget there for FY23, totally about $24 billion. About 80% of that actually comes through the Office of Procurement. So that's significant influence on the NASA's ability to execute its mission. So in last year, we did about $19 billion. Next chart, please. And then also too, for those that's, just how do a company do business, right? And so for NASA, just like a company has different divisions. So for NASA, we have different mission directorates. We have actually 5 of them that's mission related. And then we have that 6th one all the way to the right there is our mission support directorate. So this is our director that actually enables the mission. So this would be like where your Office of Finance is, budget, procurement, staff, infrastructure staff, things of that nature, everything that enables the mission. And then if you go all the way to the left, I will not hit all these different mission directors, but really there are some exciting things, right? Aeronautical research, and I'm going to talk about kind of what do we do to support aeronautical research. You can see, of course, exploration systems development, that's the rocket, basically, Artemis program, and then you can see ISS. Next chart, please. And I'll kind of talk about, so what do we buy as contracting specialists at NASA? A little more in a couple of different charts. For those that may be interested, so where would I work if I come to NASA as a contracting specialist? So basically, you can see, actually, we have some really great locations along the coast, with the exception of maybe Cleveland if you're in Ohio. But most of our locations are, we have 12 buying offices at all of our NASA centers. We also have one virtual office, and then we also have some offices that do hire virtual because they're in maybe the California area where we consider those hard to fill locations because of the cost of living. Also, too, the poll that Jessica showed about college degrees. So I'm very similar to what you heard from Madeline and also Jessica. Did not know what contracting was. My degree, I have a master's in aeronautical science and also a bachelor's in aeronautical science. So really, we're not looking at the business side of businesses and procuring aeronautical systems, but really fell in love with the career field through an internship. I started my career active duty Air Force and then got into the contracting career field through the Air Force internship about 24 years ago, actually. Next chart, please. And as you can see, of course, I got to throw this plug out there. NASA is the best place to work out of the large federal agencies. And so Jessica did talk about kind of, she had a very clean, I would say, diagram of her day, right? I was thinking when I saw that, wow, that's how my day starts. But by the time it ends, I have diagonal lines going in all different directions. And some of those things I probably just didn't get to that day. So it's great to see, you know, the differences. So here from a contracting officer, so what is a contracting officer? First, let's start there. So contracting specialist is the career field. And as you become proficient in the career field, you get what's called a warrant. And so a warrant enables you to become that blue takeaway box there on the left side of the screen, where contracting officers are the only official who can actually contractually bind the government. So basically, you get to sign the contract, and you're that member of that integrated product team that represents the business side of the house. Typically, there's a technical rep, so there could be different engineers depending on if you're buying a large or small type item. There's a finance person, of course, someone to identify the correct money. You have your legal reps, and then different other reps depending on the size of the organization. And you can also see some of the different responsibilities. So basically, we're business advisors. And so we talk through business strategies. And of course, we use that contract as the mechanism to execute that business relationship and then that business strategy. Next chart, please. All right, so some typical job responsibilities of a contract specialist. We develop acquisition strategies. So what is an acquisition strategy? And I'll keep it really simple. So if you're in the market to purchase a new car, for the most part, most people kind of do some market research. They figure out where they want to go. They figure out if they want to lease a vehicle or if they want to actually buy a vehicles. You know, there's different figures of merits for leasing and also different figures of merits depending on how you're going to use that vehicle if you want to own the vehicle. And so really, in a sense, that's kind of what the acquisition strategy is. And then we go into, we write or complete the request for proposal. So basically, that's our intent to industry of what we're looking for with our terms and conditions. And then eventually, once we award that contract, we actually administer the contract to make sure, of course, that the work is actually being performed the way that it's supposed to. And then, of course, we got to pay invoices. So we review the work before we pay the invoice, right? Just like at home, you wouldn't necessarily pay something if you didn't get the service. And then when it's done, we close out the contract and move on. Most of the time for large acquisitions, one contract specialist really doesn't stay their whole career with one acquisition. We move around because you want to get that broadening and that expertise that Jessica and Madeline talked about with the different NCMA certifications or even just on-the-job training. Next chart, please. All right, so for NASA, as I stated, you could be a contract specialist for a lot of different companies. Very high in demand. There's not enough of us to be precise. But for NASA, we actually get to do some very unique, I would say, procurement instruments. And so this chart is really just full of pictures, and I'll just take a few minutes to kind of really talk about it. So on the left side of the chart there, where you see that building, so we do construction. You typically could do that anywhere. We do IT type services, IT components, monitors, supercomputing, things of that nature, logistics services, anything pretty much from a NASA facility. You know, our facilities are very large. They're just like military installations. So anything that actually operates that facility is pretty much done through a contract. And then, of course, you can see the office furniture. So basically everything from, filling out a facility to ensure that employees have what they need to be successful on the job. And then, of course, you can see grounds maintenance. Now, very unique for NASA on the middle of the screen and also the left side of the screen is some of our spaceflight instruments. And I'll just kind of hit some of these you may have seen in the news, which is also more exciting. The top left corner is the DART mission, the Double Asteroid Redirect mission. And then also below that, the James Webb Telescope. And you've probably seen many of those pictures. That telescope took a long time. There's about a 20-year contract. And so sometimes you run into different challenges because the technology just does not exist yet, or is so immature that there's just a lot of lessons learned. Of course, the bottom part of that screen there is the ISS. Everyone's familiar with that. We're actually coming up on 2030 is the end of the life of the ISS. And then, of course, in the middle of the chart there, Artemis 1, we had that successful launch last year. Very great day for NASA. Very great day for NASA to be back into actually launching a NASA rocket. And then, of course, the two pictures below that are actually two new acquisitions that are actually working through right now. The one in the middle is the human lander for the moon, and that's with Blue Origin. And the one below that should look familiar to everyone. You've probably seen it on the news. It's the SpaceX Human Lander, which is a version of their Starship that you may have saw the test. It was all silver, very futuristic, as I call it, when it was displayed. All right, next chart, please. So as a contract specialist, as you can see, you kind of get an opportunity to just touch a lot of different procurements that actually, do result in, things that you can, we call it hardware, but things that you can actually touch. And so like what makes a great contract specialist? And so these are just some qualities that my team pulled together. And so really, if you really look at this, it's really not particular just to contracting, right? These are actually really great qualities for any career field. And you may be thinking, right, well, I'm not an excellent writer. Well, that's okay. I didn't start out as an excellent writer either, because I do realize we have some college students on here, and we also have about half that's entry level. And so, so you just develop that skill over time. Well, I'm not a great speaker. Well, that's okay. They have Toastmasters and different clubs and different events that you can do to get that practice, because you just develop that over time and become more comfortable, and also build your confidence in that skill. And so, that's really the takeaway on this chart is a lot of these skills, you can develop these skills in non-course paid job type instruments or activities, such as volunteer work, extracurricular activities, your community involvement require all these different skills. And so as you're thinking about, and I'll talk about some tips for resumes in a couple of charts, as you're thinking about resumes, really kind of think back on not just, well, I've never had a paid job, right? Well, that's okay. There's other things you can do, and I'll talk about those. Next chart, please. All right, so for me, I've had so far a very great career. And so just kind of give you an idea, I've started as an intern. So basically, started at the bottom, kind of worked my way up. I'm the deputy senior procurement executive for NASA. So I'm the number 2 person out of about a 780 strong staff across the country that supports NASA, enabling us to do all the great things that we do to support this great country. But through, it's been a long journey to get here, right? And so what would I advise to those that's coming through the ranks, right? And so you can see a lot of things on here, but I'm just going to pull on a few of them. That the first one I'm going to pull on is get a mentor and be a mentor. So get a mentor. And sometimes people think mentorship has to be very formal. It's actually, most mentorships is actually very informal. Sometimes you see some characteristics from an individual that you like, right? And so you seek that individual out and you build that relationship. And it does not have to be anything formal, like a formal, mentor protege type relationship. Just you ask questions, you get to build the relationship, and then also they share their knowledge, right? And you get more than one mentor. And the reason is because mentors, just like our individual selves, we bring a certain set of perspectives based on our own experiences. And so you get multiple mentors. That way, if you have a certain question, you could get different opinions about the question. And it actually will be interesting to see if sometimes the opinions actually line up pretty good. If it's like a known issue that you're dealing with. And also you can be a mentor, and you can be a mentor to others because as you go through your career and you start, as an entry level and you work your way up, if you want to be a supervisor, you have to learn to be a great mentor, because that's what supervisors are. You're bringing that staff behind you. And then also I would say celebrate the small wins, right? So this is about encouragement. And so we got to be our own best cheerleader. Sometimes Jessica and Madeline did talk about some days that the days are long and things of that nature. I think that happens no matter what kind of job you have. And so you have to encourage yourself along the journey, but also you have to surround yourself with people who encourage you, people that are like-minded and that's, feeding into the positive you, with whatever that may be. And then also too, on this chart, I would just kind of pull down to the bottom where it says seek stretch assignments. And so get out of your comfort zone. So if you're in college, I would say get out of your comfort zone. Are you part of some clubs? Are you active on campus? And I'll talk about why that's important. And if you're entry level, get out of your comfort zone. Are you exploring and trying to learn and being a sponge and seeking out, different things about the company, learning about the company? Because as business advisors that we are, understanding the totality and the mission of the agency or the company, that enables us to be better at our job. Next chart, please. And then the last thing, while the chart switch on that is if you're asked to complete a task or to do something that you do not think you're, you know, readily available to do, or, you know, say yes. That's a great opportunity to stretch. Because a lot of times if our facilitators, teachers, or even mentors are asking us, they see something in us, right? That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to not assist us. So use them and complete that task and stretch out of your comfort zone. So this is just a early career map to kind of help either college or entry level if you are the federal government, but it really any job. And so I'm not going to talk about all the things on here. Like I said, this is really a tool for everyone. But really what you can see is it identifies for day one, you really don't know anything, right? You're just showing up. And that's what entry level is. You don't have to know anything. That's the great part about it. When I started as an intern day one, I didn't know anything about contracting. Didn't even know the difference between contracting and procurement, to be honest with you. But over time, these are some of the things that you should develop and you should lean into so you can become more proficient. And they talked about some of the NCMA certificates you can kind of see on there. But I would, you know, pull you over to the right side of the column there on the other, because there's other things than OJT and just training, right? You got to get good work habits, learn time management. You got to learn how to participate as a team, things of that nature. And then also get into public speaking. Next chart, please. And I really believe that a lot of those other things will help you in any career field, regardless of what it is. So here's a QR code for tips for building your resume. Of course, we would love for you to come to work for NASA, but really, this is just any general, very general information here. So for some things that if you're college, you know, I talked about clubs, you know, sports, right? Because think about it. If you're in leadership positions, part of that club, you're learning something, you're leading, right? You're doing something, right? So those are things that you can put on your resume. If you're team sports, right? Because contracting, I always tell people it's a team sport. We're one member of a very large team, depending on the size of the procurement that we're trying to procure. And you have to learn how to work with other colleagues. Sometimes those colleagues outrank you. Sometimes those colleagues are below you. Sometimes they're peers. And then also sometimes, guess what? Just like anything else in life, everyone don't agree on everything, right? So you have to have those difficult conversations and work through a consensus to move the process forward. Also, too, really big fan of NCMA if you're, especially for college students, but also entry level, free for college. But you want to, if you're college, you want to join NCMA, and this is why. One, you learn about the career field, right? But also, two, when you're applying, and I can tell you from a hiring manager, when I'm looking at entry level applicants and I see NCMA on there and they're active and they're learning, that enables you to talk that in your interview. And that it allows you to be highly competitive now versus just competitive. So think about it from that lens. Also, you want to identify awards, accomplishments, things of that nature. And if you're entry level, you still want to talk some of those things, but you want to now focus more on, you know, what kind of work have you been doing? What have you been learning? Because really we're looking for initiative, commitment, critical thinking skills. So next chart, please. So check out that QR code when you get an opportunity. All right. So from a hiring perspective, so if you don't come in and intern, right, there's other avenues. Right now, NASA with other federal agencies have direct hiring authority. So this actually really opens up our ability to hire. So of course, for contracting, you have to have a bachelor's degree. So when you see authority 7, 9, 11, right, that means you can start as a 7 or 9 or 11. So I'm really just going to focus in on the yellow pieces here, the yellow highlights. So if you to start as a 7, you have to have a bachelor's degree. To start as a 9, you have to have a master's degree, and then of course as 11, you have to have a PhD. So that's kind of, you know, I would say it's education based on where you start, right? But that doesn't, you know, mean where you go once you get into the career field, right? For those, you know, I started as an intern as a GS5. So, you know, it doesn't matter where you start. It matters what you do when you show up. When you get on a team, what do you do, right? And then also too, you know, I'll show it. My last chart will be USA Jobs. And so you go to USA Jobs and you just type in contracting or procurement and it'll come up and you look for the direct hiring authority. So direct hiring, let me talk a little bit about that. That allows us, we get all the different applicants or resumes. And then sometimes, I'll be honest with you, it's hundreds. So you're really looking for, especially for these entry level jobs, those things that kind of tie some connection to the career field. because you have hiring managers and interview panels that's looking through hundreds of resumes for 7-9-11s. And so we tend to focus in on, is there some connection, right? And sometimes the connection may not necessarily be contracted. The connection could be business related, right? Because to be successful in contracting, you could be any career field, but your resume has to talk to the business aspects, and then also the business manager, the business advisor piece, right? And then sometimes we're looking for skills, right? I talked about, does the resume show initiative? Does the resume show commitment? Does the resume show critical thinking? Does the resume show that they're highly involved? To show that they're probably going to be a good teammate, someone to put on a team. Should we at least offer them an interview, and then allow them to come in and talk to us? Typically, when we see NCMA on there, it shows that commitment. It shows that self-starter, or at least initiative, right? And then that at least gets our eyes on that resume, and then the rest is up to you. How do you fill it in? All right, so next chart. So there's a lot of different avenues. On this one, this is our pathway internship program. And so just for awareness, the NASA pathway, and this link will actually get you just to, I think, the procurement one. But pathway is, every career field you can think of: engineering, MIS, IT, all of it, right? This announcement actually did just close, but I still wanted to provide it because that way you can go in and you can see what the traditional requirements are. If you're a college student, traditionally it's 30 hours. So we typically do 2 announcements, one in the fall and then one in the spring. And then typically the way the internships work for NASA is you could do 1 or 2, pretty flexible. So maybe not 1 or 2, but it's pretty flexible. Typically what I see is some people come a full semester and they work the full semester and they take off. And then the next semester they're back at school, and they do that, right? And then when they graduate, if they've done great work, they actually, it's really easy to convert, because in this job, this internship program, you can automatically convert. And then the other way that I have seen it is people actually just reduce from a full-time student to a part-time student, and they actually work part-time, and then they go to school part-time, and then they just finish through their program. And then, of course, once they graduate, then they can convert at that point also. So another great opportunity for those that may be interested. Next chart, please. All right, so this is the QR code for USA Jobs. For any federal job that you're interested in, most of them come out through USA Jobs, and so this will get you there. I would say do not wait to the last minute if you are interested in any federal job. And the reason is because sometimes USA Jobs can be hard to navigate. And so you want to make sure that you have a resume ready and current. And you also want to ensure that you at least have a non-official transcript, because for most contracting jobs, you have to upload your transcript. And so you want to have that available. And then any certificates that you may have too, you may want to have that available. So again, don't wait till the last minute, because to have those things available, if a job is going to close, that will not be beneficial for you. All right, next chart, please. All right, so that's so thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. As I stated, I know there's a ton of information in here, but please, when you have time, look through it. It's some really great points and tips to assist you if you're interested in this career field. And so with that, do I turn it back over to you, Jessica?
Yes, I think we've got a polling question. So next slide, please. All right, so after what you've heard so far, there's a polling question that's going to pop up for you all. What one word best describes the contract management or procurement profession for you? Does it sound difficult, elusive, rewarding, unexplored, interesting? If none of these words seem to resonate with you, you can type something in the chat here of where you think this really falls and why you should get involved, or maybe this is just not for you. Hopefully that's not the answer. Interesting, rewarding, yes. I'm glad to see that, and I'm very glad that elusive is really, really low. I think all of us are really trying to make sure that the path to contract management careers is as clear as possible. I think for me, it was a little bit weird. I wasn't familiar with it at the beginning. And so people would say, well, how do I get into this? And I think certifications like the entry-level CCMA certification is going to make it so much easier for people who don't necessarily have a background or a degree in contract management to get those entry level positions. So I think we have a little bit more slides, and I know we have a lot of questions and only 10 minutes. So I'm going to stop talking and turn it back over to Samantha.
All right, well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Marvin. Thank you, Jessica and Maddie, of course. So wanted to share the pathway. Again, a lot of questions coming in about where to find jobs and internships. A lot of folks in the chat and the Q&A area who are looking to transition into the career field, in addition to students who are entering for the first time. So of course, NCMA has a job board. Marvin shared some good resources as well. So LinkedIn, USA Jobs, Indeed. NCMA's internship program is new, as I mentioned, and more is coming. We will be sharing that with all of you. We will have your information and want to make a direct connection with you. But some exciting things to come, including an internship board that will help you connect more directly via NCMA. So NCMA is the neutral forum for the profession, meaning that, you know, we are not government, we're not industry, we're not state and local, but we represent and are a common place for all of those to come together. So a lot more to come on that, and it's a clear part of our pathway because a meaningful internship as you enter the profession or an entry-level job is important as you build your skills and chart your path. So this is, again, just kind of a reiteration of what we shared, but want to make sure that all is clear. Remember, NCMA membership is free to students. So if you're on the fence, get a membership and you'll learn a whole lot more. It is free. And then keep in mind the CCMA certification. The prep course is completely free to students. It's fairly low cost if you're not a student, and get CCMA certified. It will set you apart as you're competing with the masses for contract management jobs. So let's get to questions. I want to make sure we don't have any that did not get addressed. I did see one about kind of transitioning between agencies. I don't know, Marvin, if you had any thoughts on that specifically. If not, it might be a good question to kind of share on NCMA's Collaborate board or elsewhere, but yeah, over to you.
Yeah, can you show me that question? I don't see it. Sorry.
Sure.
Actually, I lost it too, but I remember it.
Jessica answered it from an industry perspective, but I can read it out loud,
Yeah,
which
please
is,
do. Thank you.
can we discuss how to transition between agencies, Air Force to NASA or Army to Navy, etc.? And I can read Jessica's response, which is the industry response would be to find the commonalities between the role you have and the role you want. Rewrite, reformat resume to lean into the skills required by the new role. Really be able to articulate your why.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a great response. And I would just add, actually, NASA has a lot of contracting specialists that come from a variety of agencies. You know, people stay for a certain amount of time and then they want to go try something different, right? They may get a promotion at a different agency. And so really the first step is, of course, try to build those connections. I think Madeline talked about networking. That helps, right? But also you got to apply, of course, through USA Jobs, right? And then that goes back to resume, the skills that you're getting. The best thing I could advertise is try to get a variety of skills and then just continue to apply and build networks through USA Jobs.
The other note that Michelle Courier, who's NCMA's Chief Learning Officer, raised in the chat, Back to Basics, which is DoD specific certification. It's not to be confused with the professional certifications that are based on the continuing education, but there are learning requirements for DoD professionals as well as civilian agencies specific to federal government contracting officers. And those, once you have those basic level credentials called Back to Basics, on the DoD side, those can be a good jumping point to lend some mobility across agencies in DoD. Michelle, we can probably allow you to talk if you'd like to share any more about that.
Well, we get Michelle. There are a couple questions in here that I think we can answer with one go. So
Okay,
I'll put them all up there. So there's A question regarding the certification is any credit given for professional experience? And will NCMA go back to non-degreed professionals to obtain the CFCM certification? And then also, I'm a recent graduate interested in pursuing certification. Would I be eligible for entry-level positions with these credentials? I am happy to share the link to our CPE guide, which is from our certifications team, and also the link to our certifications page, which lists the minimums for obtaining any of our 4 certifications. So it does vary by certification, and we do have a very detailed page for all of them.
So I can take those just quickly. Any credit given for professional experience. So while credit is connected to continuing education, like it can be NCMA courses, be courses taken in your workplace. There is also a professional experience year eligibility that goes with each certification. So the best thing to do is take a look at the link that Lene shared to kind of to understand for each certification what the years of eligibility experience are in the profession, combined with the professional development, continuing education, which keeps you current in what's new in the profession.
Can I add something there, please?
Yep, please.
Also, too, for entry-level jobs, one thing I would really want to foot stomp is when you're on USA Jobs and you're reading an announcement, there's a section that talks about specialized experience. Please take your time to read through that section. A lot of times it talks about, for example, in contracting, it could say if you're applying for like a 12 or something, it could say you have experience with, working on an RFP or something. But for the lower level jobs, it's more about just very general type of experience. You have to really address that in your resume. And so if you have any professional experience, you just want to make sure that you identify that within your resume. You talk about what that is, right? And you demonstrate, what did you do? One thing I would add is for our entry level jobs, typically our 7-9-11s, there's no need for I would say NCMA certificate. You could get hired without an NCMA certificate. However, once you get hired, you will get put into the FACC professional certificate route, which you would have to do for all of the federal agencies. However, as I stated earlier, though, if you don't have an NCMA certificate, right now, if you can get involved in NCMA, that increases your opportunity to be familiar with the career field and move you, amongst the hundreds of resumes that we do see. Thank you.
Well, I'm excited to have Michelle Courier make a guest appearance here. Michelle, over to you.
Hi, thanks. I've been monitoring the chat and listening to the fabulous presenters. I started in contract management 46 years ago and never went without an exciting job anywhere in the world. So contract management, you can buy anything, anywhere, anytime. This is the profession, and I think Marvin alluded to it beautifully. The skill sets that you learn in preparing to be a contract manager transcend across any profession. If you want to do law, if you want to do real estate, every single thing that we do requires a contract, and every contract has a body of regulations. And what contract management teaches you is how to understand the regulations and how to solve problems within or around the regulations. But I would like to just give one bit of advice. Having been a professor both before and during COVID, I think it's very important. I know everybody wants to be remote. It's convenient. You don't have to get dressed. You roll out of bed and roll into work. But I don't advise that for college students, interns, new professionals. And Jessica Johnson very beautifully talked about how her day starts, going into the office, sitting with her colleagues, having a cup of coffee. The thing I worry most about this new generation coming into the profession is that they're not building their social capital. And social capital is this: your education, your on-the-job training, your networking, things that you do when you're hanging out with people. Unless you are hanging out with your office in your living room or your kitchen, you really need to go in and connect, even if it's in a hybrid situation. Because when it comes time for promotion, who knows you? Who knows about the things that you're capable of? Who saw in action solving a problem? So build that social capital, network. I put in the chat a ton of paid internships and contracting. You all should have a paid internship this summer, and you need to write to us at NCMA and let us know what you're doing with your newfound wealth, because there's no reason why you cannot participate in contract management while you're in college. You're solving problems. The last thing I'll leave with is resume. So I had a student one time and said, Michelle, I've only been a server in a restaurant. Who would hire me? So I asked a question. I said, before you brought the hamburger and French fries, did you deliver the ketchup to the table? And he said, yes. And I said, you are a person that knows how to strategize, to plan for the future, and make sure your customer has a pleasant experience. The thing I hate more than anything is for someone to ask me if I want ketchup after they've delivered my French fries, because by the time they come back, my French fries are cold. So don't ever think the things that you do on campus, the things that you do for volunteer work, whether it's the Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, your church, whatever you do, you are building very important leadership skills. And those need to be communicated, as Marvin said, on your resume. So good luck, everyone. If you want to come work at NCMA, hit Samantha up. She's always looking for a few good interns. So good luck, everybody.
Thank you everyone so much for joining today. I do know that Mallory did share our survey link in the chat. So if you would like to give feedback on today's event, we would love that. I know we're 2 minutes over, but I wanted to thank all of you for your participation and great questions today. And thank you to our panel for joining and sharing all of their great information. Again, we will get the slides and the recording up in the course website. And we do hope to see you again at a future NCMA event. Have a great week and take care. Bye-bye, everyone.